several years ago, and this whole I-5 bridge replacement has been in the works for many, many years, but several years ago, suddenly Clark Transit, it's also known as C-Tran, had an emergency meeting, and no one knew what was going to be the purpose of that meeting until it actually occurred. And they signed an agreement with TriMet, which is the light rail operator on the other side of the river in Oregon. And the agreement was that if TriMet, when they were negotiating to get light rail into Washington, if they couldn't come to an agreement, then they would force C-Tran to use its eminent domain authority to get that property. So basically what they did was they ceded their eminent domain authority over to another state, to an entity in another state. And this caused a lot of concern with people in my area. A lot of people were very concerned because they felt like this was an assault on property rights and that we were giving the authority not only to another entity, but to an entity outside of this state where they had no vote. No vote on any of the officials there. And to make matters worse, they were told it was going to be a $5 million fine if C-Tran tried to back out. What this amendment says is before you do tolls, Oregon, you have to agree to let C-Tran out of that agreement, because that is not good for the people of Southwest Washington. And it's a precedent that should never have been set and should never be followed again. Please adopt the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The last numbers I saw showed that Clark County was the third largest taxpayer to the state of Oregon. Clark County, Washington, one of the largest taxpayers to the state of Oregon. And now they're going to be asked to pay a toll to go pay that tax. Mr. Speaker, there are a lot of people who are very concerned that don't have any trust in the whole process. That's why we're not building a bridge right now, because in 2013, the whole proposal fell apart and never got funded. And it's because so many people don't trust the process. This amendment will be a big step to reach out to those people who are opposed to the bill, that are opposed to the bridge, that are opposed to the tolls on the bridge, to say, you know what? We recognize that it's unfair that you have to pay an income tax in Oregon. We're not going to make you also pay a toll for the privilege of going there and paying that tax to another state, where incidentally, they have no vote. They have no representation. What's happening to them is unfair. And the lion's share of the tolls that'll be paid will be paid by Washington residents, not Oregon residents. And they view that as being even less fair. This at least does something to make things so that they're not less fair than they are already. Please vote for the amendment. Before you can build a span, you have to build a bridge. The tolling here will build the span. The amendment will build the bridge. The reason why the amendment will build the bridge is because there is distrust by many people in Southwest Washington about how these funds are going to be used. We keep hearing, we can't do this, we can't put sideboards on it. There's another process. There's negotiations that have to go on with Oregon in order to do these things. We can withhold tolling authority unless it meets certain specific criteria, unless it meets the sideboards we put on it, unless it's within those sideboards. All this amendment is doing is putting a sideboard on there. And it's about building a bridge. so we can build a span. I agree we need that bridge. I've driven over that bridge. It does need to be replaced. No question about it, Mr. Speaker. I believe we need to replace that bridge. But we need to earn the trust of the people in Southwest Washington. This amendment helps build the bridge to get that trust that will help us build the span. Please vote yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rising in support of the amendment. We heard testimony in the Transportation Committee that their intent is to start tolling in 2026. The bridge, the replacement bridge, isn't scheduled to be open until 2031. 5 years, Mr. Speaker. 5 years. This bill, the underlying bill, is asking my constituents to sit in traffic for 5 years paying a high toll. That's not fair to my constituents. And the way projects are done, we sell bonds, we pay it back with the revenue that comes in. The project's going to cost the same. Question is, do we toll now, or do we wait until they're actually being able to use the facility to pay the tolls on it? This amendment says they won't have to pay tolls until they actually get to use the new facility. There's huge distrust among people in Southwest Washington about this whole bridge proposal. And just because they start paying tolls doesn't mean they're going to feel like this project is actually going to get done. They're still going to wonder. They're still going to worry. Are there going to be cost overruns? Are there going to be things that are going to disrupt the whole process? Will it be just 5 years that they're sitting and waiting in traffic? Or will it be much longer? Will they ever actually get the bridge started? That's why this amendment is important. If you want to build a span, you have to build a bridge. This amendment is about building a bridge, building that trust with the taxpayers. Please vote yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rising in opposition to the bill. I've heard from my constituents for many, many, many years. In fact, it's over 21 years that I've been hearing from my constituents about this. And as time has gone on, the concerns they've had have not been eased. They've only worsened. The distrust that many in Southwest Washington have with the process, even the new process. They don't trust the governments on the other side of the river. They have very big concerns because they represent somebody else. If we give anything over to the other side, my constituents feel like they're going to lose control. That it won't matter when they go talk to their representatives because it's being done by somebody on the other side of the river. They don't think it's fair to be sitting in traffic and paying tolls to sit in traffic for 5 or more years to maybe get the bridge that's been promised to them, because they're not convinced they're going to get it. They're convinced they're going to pay. They're convinced they're going to continue to pay Oregon income tax, and now they're going to pay tolls on top of it at a time when they need more affordability. It's becoming less affordable. The time for us to put sideboards on this process is right now. Sideboards that have been put on this bill are inadequate. They don't build the trust. They don't build the bridge. And people are concerned they'll never see the span either. Please vote no.